Call this public meeting of the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Welcome, everybody, to our October meeting. And our first report, Mr. Shealy, is the annual delinquent tax collection report.
Thank you. David Crawford here.
He said he wouldn't take more than 20 minutes. I've already talked to him.
I've gave him two.
Minus 18.
Okay.
Yeah, minus 18.
I was gonna say,
Thanks.
that would put all of you to sleep if I talked
20
20 minutes
minutes?
on tax.
Not me. I'd be out. I'd be good.
Delinquent property tax.
No, well,
Okay,
there
no,
you
we're not talking about tax.
Okay.
returns. I mean, that'd be fun.
Then we could.
Here's Paige, may she get one also?
Oh, yeah, pages. Yes.
I
Sorry.
should have known that. Right on time.
Right on time.
Please don't say that.
She really attempted to miss my report, I saw that.
Yeah, she knew you were first.
Just the up and down button.
I should be done by now.
Okay, yeah, so it's in there. Okay, we'll make this really, really quick since all I have is 2 minutes, and hopefully with delinquent taxes, you would go to sleep. First, what we want to look at is the 2016 tax year. The original levy was $108 million. The tax office did a great job, as always, collecting 106.5 of that. So before we got to work on anything, you were at a 98% collection level. Out of what was remaining, which was the $2.1 million for July 1st of 2017 to June 30th of 2018, which is our delinquent tax collection year, we collected 74.3% of that. Now to look at the 2017, this current year that we're looking at, your original tax levy was $119.6 million. Tax office did an even better job than the year before. So you are at 98.9% collected before we even got started. So our turnover is $1.3 million that we're working on. So that's $800,000 less than the year before, and your levy was more. So it's working to your advantage and not necessarily mine. Out of that 1.3 million for the first 3 months through September 30th, we've already collected 44% of that. So what we have remained to work on right now is $730,000 for the 2017 tax year. Are there any questions?
No, we appreciate the job y'all do for us. And
Thank you so much.
we're glad that your workload is lessened from this district.
Well, it's a great district to work for, so we definitely enjoy our community partnership with the district and look forward to our long-standing relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next report is from the Tarrant County Appraisal District Update. Mr. Jeff Law.
I asked Mr. Law to come by, give you an update on the current status, what's going on down at the appraisal district, and appreciate him coming. Thank you.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much.
Thank you for being here.
I want to say, first of all, congratulations on 98%.
Yeah.
In previous life, prior to coming to Tarrant Appraisal District, I was down in Hood County and both did the appraisal work and the collection work, and we generally turned over, we can only get about 90 to 92% collected by July, so tax office is doing a real good job for you. Congratulations on that. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. Appreciate Jim asking me to come. I always appreciate the opportunity to come speak to taxing units and answer questions, provide updates, things of that nature. 2018 has actually been a really good year for the appraisal district. Not only were values up, but most all of our operations that we've done, we've had record numbers this year, but we've actually been able to complete them almost in record time as well. So things have been really good. Jim asked me to kind of provide an update of operations, but also know you may have some questions. And I don't know whether you want to ask the questions or me speak first or how that may go, but how would you prefer?
Ahead.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. And I also want to thank you for getting me on so early. I have a daughter, I have twins, and I have a daughter that's in a UIL band competition tonight down in Joshua, so I'm going to try to
My
get in there.
grandson's down there too, and so is her son. So
Try to make that performance. If you don't make it, I'll call you back and tell you how it went. To begin with, as far as 2018 goes, like I said, it was a really good year for the appraisal district. We were able to get our certification out early this year. Typically, we certify the roll by July 25th. We actually certified it this year by July the 20th. The thing I was most proud of, if you will, the way the law is that we certify the roll with at least 95% of all the protests that have been protested completed. And normally we are working and struggling to get to that 95%. We have for decades, not just most recently, but here this year, we're actually able to certify with 97% of the protests that have been protested resolved. So we were actually not only early in our certification, we were ahead of schedule as far as the number of protests that we had resolved and taken care of, either through informal negotiations or through the actual appraisal review board
Is
process.
that specific to our district, or are you just talking about overall?
Tarrant County,
Okay,
Tarrant County as a
all
whole. Now, we were ahead in your district as well. All the districts were ahead in this particular case. But we certified our roll to all the taxing units all on the same day. We also provided an updated tax roll or updated report to the tax office on August the 21st. That's the roll that they typically will use to do tax billing and send out their tax bills. We sent them a roll in July, but they use it as sort of a test process to make sure that everything's going to work correctly. And then we update that roll in August. We call it our September roll, but that provides the latest in ownership changes, address changes, and any value corrections that were made through the ARB process. It gives the latest and greatest data to the tax office so they can mail tax bills with the most accurate information. I did mention some records, protests. We had a record year this year. We had 144,500 protests in Tarrant County as a whole. That's an all-time record high. We've never had that many protests in the history of Tarrant Appraisal District. And that dates back to nearly 35 years. Basically, you have a situation, protests have a direct correlation to property values. When property values are going up, protests will go up. To give you some comparison, in 2017, there were 137,000 protests, and in 2016, we had 106,000 protests. But ever since 2013, 14, and 15, the market value have been going up all across not only North Texas, but they've been going up all across the nation. Austin, Houston, San Antonio, all of them have seen record number of protests this year and last year, and they've also seen record number of value increases over the last 2 or 3 years. To kind of give you an idea, there's $237 billion worth of value in Tarrant County, and $88 billion of it was protested this year. About 37% of the values were protested this year. Right now, as of today, we have only 1,365 protests outstanding. So that's 99.1% of all the properties that were protested have been resolved. So we have just a few left. To kind of bring
Is
that,
percentage
I'm sorry.
is it a percentage of tax dollars or a percentage of actual disputes?
I'm sorry, say that.
Is it a percentage, when you're talking about those percentages, are they in terms of numbers of disputes, or is it in terms of tax dollars?
The number I just gave you
There's only 1% of
there.
the total tax dollars?
Yes, 37% was the total amount of value protested compared to the total amount of value that exists in Tarrant County.
I mean, 1% outstanding is just 1%.
Yeah, the 1% outstanding, or actually, 1% outstanding was of the number of protests that were filed this year, not of the total number of. We have excluded, in most of my numbers, I exclude minerals. We have about 727,000 real and personal property accounts, and 144,000 of them protested, but only 1,300 of them remain. I have not done that math, 1,300 into 720. The 1% remaining is there's 1,396 protests of the 144,000 that protested. That's the 1% remaining that I'm
The
talking
number of
about.
protests, okay, so,
Yeah.
and what percentage of dollars is that still under protest then?
I don't have that number, but I can probably get it for you. Let me talk a little bit more about Eagle Mountain Saginaw in specific. In 2018, you had 9,572 property owners file protest in Eagle Mountain Saginaw. 144,000 was Tarrant County wide. You have right at 39,600 accounts. Now, I am excluding minerals. You have nearly 22,000 mineral accounts in Eagle Mountain Saginaw, but I'm taking those out because the mineral values are fairly low. So you had about 24% of the individuals that own real and personal property file protests. What was protested was about $4.28 billion of your total appraisal roll. Residential, you had about 8,500 and 8,513 actually. Again, that was about 22% of the grand total that filed protests. Commercial, you had 833 protests filed, which represents 2% of the grand total, and then 166 business personal property accounts, which was less than 1% of the total properties that you have on the roll. Kind of give you a little bit of correlation. I looked at 18, 17, and 16. The total number of protests, again, for 18 was 9,572. In 17, only 7,112 property owners filed protest in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw. And then in 2016, only 5,523 filed protests. So we have seen an increase in Eagle Mountain, Saginaw, just like we saw an increase in Tarrant County. Again, it's a direct correlation of as property values are going up, people are filing protests, basically protesting those taxes. We try really, really hard each and every year to resolve these protests. When you have 144,000 protests come in and the state legislature gives you between May and July 25th to get them done, it's a big effort that must go on. I have 85 ARB members. We generally do that in about 22 different ARB panels. And we also, though, sit down with individuals and try to talk through and reach common ground. Values and opinion. I mean, what something is worth between two individuals can be different. I can think it's worth one thing, you might think it's worth something else. Happens all the time when people go to buy cars at a car dealership. So value being an opinion, we always try to look for fair common ground between where can we set aside differences and kind of meet at a point where both of us walk away happy with a value that's been chosen. So we always try to do that any opportunity we can. Some people will come in with information, we'll provide sales data, cost data, things like that, to show where we came up with our values, and then hear the differences. Texas is not a full disclosure state. You probably know that, but I will remind you, the Texas legislature has decided not to allow full disclosure of sales prices to appraisal districts. So we have to go and find and dig and try to accumulate data from sales information to help support the values that we do, especially in the residential side. Commercial sales data is even a bigger challenge as far as trying to get. We do buy a lot of information in order to get this, which helps us in our process. But we do try to resolve as many protests as we can, and we also try to, those that we can't, we'll go ahead and go to the appraisal review board process and have a formal hearing and have a three-panel member basically hear the dispute, make a decision based upon evidence. But we had a record number of years the last 3 years in a row. And I think that's a direct correlation to what's happening in the real estate market. To kind of give you a little bit of outlook on the real estate market itself, where I think things are headed. Last year in 2017, 2017 over 2016, we saw an overall percentage increase of about 10% in market value. In 2018 over 17, we saw nearly a 13.6. Now these are actually Eagle Mountain Saginaw numbers here, not Tarrant County, but Eagle Mountain Saginaw numbers, about 13.6%. So what's going to happen in 2019? Right now, we're still seeing strong sales activity. Talking to some of the people in my office and even some people outside the office. Any houses that are about $350,000 and on up, we're starting to see them slow a little bit in sales. I'm not saying that the sales prices are falling off or anything. It's just taking longer to sell those higher priced homes. Houses that are $250,000 and below, those are still selling very quickly, very, very fast. We still have a problem with we have little supply and too much demand. I hired two ladies in my office not long ago, and their previous job was at the Department of Public Safety. They issued driver's license. And when we hired them and brought them in and started getting to know them a little bit, one of the things they talked about was how much people are moving to Texas from outside of Texas. And I asked them specifically, where are they coming from? Well, it's coming from California, Florida, and Colorado. People are coming here. She said about every 2 or 3 persons that she dealt with was turning in a California license or a Florida license saying, I'm moving to Texas. So we have a huge number of people that are coming to Texas, which is increasing the demand, but the supply has not caught up to the demand. Right now, we're looking at about a 2 months inventory on residential sales in the greater Fort Worth metropolitan area, and that's information that comes from the Real Estate Center at Texas A&M, and they tell us that when you have 6 as the proper month's inventory, you have a nice, good, stable market. And we're sitting at about a 2, which indicates we have way too much demand and not enough supply. And I think that's part of the reason why the lower priced homes are being gobbled up so quickly, is that there's a demand for them. And so we're seeing that. I mean, I haven't heard many stories where I put my house on the market, 8 hours later it sold. That's kind of gone away, but it's not uncommon for it to sell within a month or so. But the higher priced homes are taking a little bit longer to deal with. So I do think prices are probably going to continue to increase. I do expect next year, 2019, to be another year in which we'll probably be raising values again. I'm not prepared at this time to say what the percentage will be. I don't think it's going to be a double-digit increase like we saw maybe the last couple of years. I think it'll be a single-digit increase of some sort. but it still comes back to the whole nature that there's too much demand and not enough supply. We are starting to see countywide more subdivisions coming online, which will help fill that supply issue, but it's been slow. It's been slow going. When we had the 08-09 recession, we had a lot of developers that kind of went out of business, went bankrupt, and didn't continue, and it took a while before they were able to come back online. Another problem we're starting to see that might be causing a little bit of slowdown in the higher end is interest rates have started to go up. And so with interest rates on the rise, that will have an impact. But again, we still have a pretty big demand and supply problem in both Texas, especially North Texas. I'm seeing this in Dallas, and I'm seeing here, I'm seeing Collin County, Denton County, and I heard someone speaking about Parker County earlier. I'm afraid it's happened there too. With regards to commercial values, the most significant changes that we're seeing in this area is in the Fossil Creek corridor around I-35 and I-20. Large industrial areas, sites in there. We're going to see probably some value increases possibly in there. We're starting to see some properties transferring and changing hands, which will maybe give an indication of what things are selling for. Again, Texas not being a full disclosure state, no one is required to give us that information, but we will do our best to try to find out what those things are selling for. And some new warehouse industrial development is beginning to come online. We are seeing some new retail coming online where in some of the areas where you got new housing coming in, which typically we kind of see that as new rooftops come into a particular area, sooner you'll start to see the commercial development come along behind that to support the residential development that's coming in there. Some of the areas that we're seeing movement in the commercial area are industrial. Your industrial warehouses, there's still some hot demand for that. We expect to see some of that be up a little bit. We're going to be working restaurants throughout Tarrant County this year as well. We've found that we're kind of low on the restaurant side. Offices and warehouses will be part of it. Apartments are still a little bit on the low side. We have raised them considerably the last couple of years because of the rents raising and occupancies going almost next to nothing, but we are starting to see a little softening in the rents because of capitalization rates changing somewhat, and that's due in part to the interest rates rising just a little bit. You're going to see cap rates stabilize some. They've been falling basically, and the lower the capitalization rate typically yields a higher value, but we are starting to see that change just a little bit. Retail is, I have written down here that it's stable. Retail is kind of an interesting thing. I overheard this lady speaking of the Sears went out of business and the Panera Bread came in. Sears has filed bankruptcy, and there's been other companies, big retailers like that have filed bankruptcy. Some of them are calling it the Amazon effect. The types of goods and services that you can buy through Amazon or eBay or something like that is really putting a damper on retail services. Now, restaurants and things like that, those type retail services that you don't buy via Amazon, you know, they're still doing okay. But we are starting to see kind of maybe a little bit of shift in retail because of what online buying is doing. People, I guess it depends on the product that you want to buy. You know, can I buy that online and not necessarily have to try it on or see how it looks or something like that, touch and feel it. You might still want to go to the retail outlet for that. But if you can buy it online, we're seeing more and more people doing that, which is hurting the retailers that are trying to do it in the sticks and brick buildings that are out there. Offices are kind of, and again, another little bit of a flux because we're starting to see a little bit of a culture shift in offices where more people are working from home. More people are going to these type spaces where we don't have offices per se, and we've even seen in some cases where they're abandoning the cubicle style and they're going in more of like a communal room type situation. So we're starting to see a little bit of a trend where offices are downsizing. They don't need as much space as they've had in the past. And I guess it obviously, again, depends on the type of office environment and office setting that the companies are dealing with. So office and retail are the ones that are probably going to be flat, but industrial and apartments and maybe a little bit of the warehouse stuff, we may still see a little bit of rise. So I kind of expect in 2019 probably an upward trend in values. Again, when there's more houses, there will be more value. More residential construction will equal more value, and so on and so forth. That's generally what's been going on. We're still holding our monthly taxing unit meetings with all the taxing units. We've been doing it since I went back and looked. It was November 2015 is when I sent out an email saying which date would work best for you. And we started December the 15th, and we've been having a meeting every month ever since. Now this past month was our first quarterly meeting. Those that that attend regularly, they kind of said, hey, let's start doing this quarterly instead of monthly. And so we've gone to a quarterly cycle, and we started it Thursday. Our last meeting was Thursday. So we're going to start doing that quarterly instead of monthly. But we're still doing that, still sharing with the taxing units, those that come, what's going on, a lot about our daily operations and the things that are going on day to day. Right now, we're in the field. Appraisers are out there working building permits. We've got over 13,000 building permits in Tarrant County. Of course, we get those from cities. The county doesn't make you file for a building permit, nor do school districts. It's only the cities that make you do that. But in the city alone, over 13,000 building permits have been given to our office, so we can go out and find either add-ons, new construction, new swimming pools, things of that nature. But with that, I'll hush and answer any questions that you might have.
All right. You know, our main reliance is on your beginning numbers is just so we can start working on our budget. Obviously, if we get your
Yeah.
final certified tax roll, and that's way too late for any planning,
Certainly.
as you can understand. So do you feel like that we can start relying, or is there going to be some kind of trend we can use when you start sending out those first rolls in April?
I absolutely want you to get to the point where you rely upon us. I know we had an issue this past year, and I am prepared to discuss that too. I had a very nice conversation with both Mr. Shealy and Mrs. Ring about this issue. In the May estimates that we sent out, those were pretty good estimates. I would like to point out that when we start sending out April estimates and May estimates, they are just that. They are estimates. When I send out an April estimate, I don't have a single rendition in the building. I don't have a single protest in the building. So I have no idea other than my own best guess as far as what things are going to do. So April's the worst, but are y'all a district that you start, your fiscal year's July? Or do you have?
No.
Okay, so the reason that law was put into place that I had to send out the April estimate was for the school districts that had moved their fiscal years up. And so they have to have something to go on, just like you're describing as well. But yes, I do believe our estimates are getting better and better. This year was probably the best that they've ever been. We did have that one issue. We had a business here in Eagle Mountain Saginaw School District that had not rendered yet in May. And when we sent out our May estimates, that May number for that particular business was based on the 2017 tax year, because we hadn't finalized 18. But by the time our June estimates came to be produced, that company had filed a rendition form on a non-traditional rendition form. Tarrant Appraisal District has authorization to the state comptroller to use a certain form. We use optical character recognition software that when you fill it out on this form, it goes through, the computer can read everything and inputs the data straight into the system. We've been using that system for well over 10 years. It's been in place for a long time. Well, this particular company actually used a non-traditional, they used the comptroller's form. And whenever we ran it through the system, the optical character recognition software picked up bad information. They didn't render as high a value as the computer picked it up, and it got picked up and put into the system. Now, whenever this happened, I wrote out a timeline so I could kind of share with you, and I shared this with Ms. Ring when we spoke on the telephone, and also with Mr. Shealy. On June the 5th, at 5:55, we actually had times on all these. We completed our estimates, our June estimates on June the 5th. On June the 7th, at 2:30 in the afternoon, we sent those estimates out to all the taxing entities. And Mr. Shealy picked that up at 2:30. Now, I had no idea at that particular time that he had picked it up hot off the printer and probably walked into this room, I don't know, but went into a budget meeting. But he got it at 2:30. At 2:45, our business personal property director found this issue at 4:45. And then at 5 o'clock, they called me and said, hey, we found an issue we need to look into and find out what's going on here. And by 5:10, the issue had been fixed. So we had sent the estimates out at 2:30, and by 5:10 that same day, we had the account identified, what the problem was, and we had the account fixed. And then at 5:17, our IS department began the process of rerunning new June estimates. There were 5 taxing entities affected in this particular case: Tarrant County Emergency Services, Regional Water, you guys, and the hospital district were the ones that were affected by this account. So at 5:17, we discovered it At 4:45, at 5:17, we were already fixed the problem and already running new notices, new estimates. And we had sent out a notice at 5:45 to those 5 taxing entities saying, don't use those estimates. Well, I didn't know it until much later, but after we had sent it at 2:30, Jim had already printed it, took it down the hallway and started talking to you guys about it. He wasn't at his desk to get the email and say, hey, don't use that. We're going to give you brand new ones. I believe it was the next day. By 8 o'clock that night, the new estimates were complete, and by 12 o'clock the next day, we had submitted the new estimates. But it was just, in my opinion, a terrible coincidence of tragedies, if you will, that we had sent out the estimates, discovered the error, fixed the error, and in that time, Jim had already taken the information and went to use it. And had your budget hearing been one day later, it would have all been fixed and it would have never been an issue at all. But we have looked into it, and like I said, I spoke to Ms. Ring. We looked into our processes. We've changed processes to our optical character recognition software. We've also changed some processes to where renditions like that should not be sent through that type process. And we've made some other changes to try to prevent something like this from ever happening again, not only to you, but to anyone else in Tarrant County. But it was a situation, and quite frankly, that 24-hour differences of when y'all's meeting would have been, you probably would have never known about it. It would have been fixed, it would have been corrected, and Jim would have walked down here with better estimates for June. But it was just one account that, had they filed on the correct forms that we would prefer that they would use, it would have been different. Now we're trying to change a lot of that from the standpoint of our website, and we're trying to push people to use our internet and our website to do this online rendition completion process, which will make it even better and make it even sort of more foolproof, if you will. Then the only thing we'll have to worry there is that they typed the number incorrectly, something to that effect.
Is this the same software that that was used a couple of years ago when I first got on the board that shorted the district millions of dollars?
No, sir, it's not.
I said, so you can kind of see, we all still remember that.
Oh,
So
certainly.
It's
I do too.
kind of a trust factor there that's kind of hard to get past.
Yes, sir. That was in 2015, and when I went into this with the idea that we're going to transfer over, you have to understand too that the appraisal district was operating on software that was over 30 years old. We went out and had a study done, and they said, we basically said, what should we do? Should we stick with what we have, or should we change to something else? And the independent consultants that did a study on it said, no, you're sitting on a ticking time bomb. You have too few people in the building that know how this current software works. It was an in-house product. It was produced by TAD programmers. And boy, were they prophetic. Before we ever purchased the new software, one of those programmers had a heart attack and died on a Saturday while he was home. And then the other person who has, he was there for a little bit longer, but he has since passed away. So both of those brain trusts, if you will, have both since died and are gone. But no, that's a completely different software. The optical characteristic recognition software has been in existence for over 10 years, used by TAD. Totally different software, totally different system. But people were telling me that it's going to take at least 3 years before you're going to be completely up on your feet, ready to go with the new appraisal software. 2018 was our 15, 16, and 17. 2018 was our 4th year. It's been our best year yet. And quite frankly, there was no way in the world we would have ever handled 144,000 protests, because I could have given you more breakdown if you wanted on residential versus commercial, but the vast increase of all of the protests we got are on the residential side. We didn't see hardly any increase whatsoever on the commercial side, because the same commercial properties protest year over year over year. And it was actually the software that helped us get through that process and handle those accounts.
That software may have helped y'all get through the process, but it helped us go down millions of dollars that we never get back. So, I mean, that's, I hear you talk here, and it's when you came before us the last time and addressed this issue, you did the same thing, in my opinion. You make excuses, you say why this happened or why it didn't happen, but the bottom line is, still to this day, as I'm just one board member, but I feel that we never got the apology or the sincerity from your group and from you specifically for all of the financial loss that you caused the district.
Well, I will sincerely apologize today. I really mean that. And I have apologized, I believe, publicly many, many times for the shortcomings that we dealt with. Software is a tough thing. I hope y'all never have to go through a software conversion. It's, as one person told me, that a person should only go through a software conversion once in a lifetime. I believe them. But please accept my sincere apologies for the troubles that may have been caused. 2017 and 2018 were both good years for the appraisal district. I think we produced good rolls, or reliable rolls, with this one account exception. We've passed a ratio study that the state comptroller performs for school districts for 2016, 2017, and we're about to go through another one in 2019, and I have full confidence that we're going to pass that one. So I publicly, sincerely apologize to you, sir, for any trouble that the software issues may have caused.
And I accept that, and I think we all do. It's just, but it's the money lost we never get back again. It's money that's never recouped. And that's a bad thing for the students in the district, so.
Well, I'm not a school finance expert, don't claim to be and don't really want to be, but my understanding was in the 2015 year in which we did not pass a ratio study, which I believe is the year you're referring to, every school district that didn't pass was in the grace period. And it was my understanding through the school funding formulas that not a single district in Tarrant County actually lost any state funding whatsoever. So I've heard some people say, especially the newspapers, that districts lost money, but I actually haven't had any of them that have shown me where there was losses. I mean, there may be. Again, I'm not a school finance person whatsoever. I don't do that part of it. That it may be the case. I don't know.
We're all looking at Jim. I thought we'd seen numbers to that effect, but I
I'll
thought he
send
shared
you
with
the
you as
sheet.
well.
Yeah, I'll send you the sheet.
Again, I apologize. I don't know what else to
I mean,
say.
it was real dollars. You and I
It
have
was-
discussed
it was-
as well. It
yes.
definitely was real dollars here.
It was
We can
very
certainly share with you because we can
difficult,
quantify it. We have. So.
It was a very difficult process of going through a software transformation and conversion of our size. We have over 1.1 million property accounts in Tarrant County. And, but I think for our last couple of years, things have been going exceptionally well. This year, like I said, we certified early. We got through more protests than we've ever gotten through in the history of the Tarrant Appraisal District. I expect next year values are going to be up. People are going to be mad. It's funny to me that 144,000 people show up. I mean, I had 9,500 people from Eagle Mountain, Saginaw show up and protest their values. Did 9,500 people show up and complain about the tax rate when you did your budget adoption? I doubt it. I imagine they all came to my office and filed a protest. But we're going to handle them. I mean, next year we're going to be another big year, and we're going to do our best to take care of those property owners and those protests as quickly and as efficiently as we can. And I'm hoping and praying that our results that we come out in April and May is something that you can look at and you can rely upon, and you can do your budget analysis and move forward.
As long as those trends hold, that we can rely on, then I think maybe as we go and build some history and trust, as Mr. Daughtry said, that we will be able to use the numbers with a little more authority. That's your hope, I'm sure, as well.
Oh,
as ours,
absolutely,
so.
absolutely. It's my job. I see my job as just simply going out and appraising every piece of property at its true market value, and then turn around and reporting that to you so that you'll have a basis by which to set a tax rate and adopt a budget. And I want both of them to be as accurate as they possibly can be. I honestly do.
We share that mutual goal then,
Well,
for sure.
we are on the same page then.
What percentage of those protests were handled online? Because you guys have the ability to do that now,
yes,
right?
we had a little over 25,000 of the 144,000, about a little over 25,000 of them were processed online. I didn't bring a calculator to do that math.
I can do it.
But yes, that's a good question. And we are really trying this next year and all years going forward to try to encourage people to go to the online process. Even if they don't resolve the protest online, just protesting online, that keeps an individual from my office to have to physically enter the protest, because when they do it online, it gets entered automatically, it gets put directly into the computer, and it can be handled in a much more efficient manner. So we're trying to encourage people to do the online process, whether they do the settlement negotiations or whether or not. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and can you also talk a little bit, because when you and I had talked this summer, you had talked about some process you're gonna put in place to, I know a lot of that catching of the air is was manual, and you were in the process of hopefully putting in some more automated processes.
Yes,
Can you talk a little bit
our
about those
IS
changes?
department is constantly looking at ways to introduce what we call edit checks into the system. And we've been talking, Thomson Reuters is the company that actually owns the software that we use, and we're also talking with them extensively about introducing edit checks into the system. So as we come across processes in which we feel like an automated process can be put in place, we'll try to introduce it into our system for us, and then we'll try to turn around and go to Thomson Reuters and say, look, this is how that process needs to work, and then they work to see whether or not it's something they want to put in their product for all their clients across the nation, or if it's just something that might be local for us. But we're always looking for ways in order to create those edit checks in an automated format.
So is there something in place now for like that one we talked about? So
Well,
that if it's over a certain value, that you wouldn't even generate the
Right.
report? Yeah.
Well, and also the major thing for this one was changes to the optical characteristic. As Mr. Daughtry mentioned, that software is not related to the appraisal software at all. So that making changes to that software so that the optical characteristic recognition process will be better was the first step that we found that's where a failure was. It wasn't reading it correctly. Fortunately, we hadn't seen in the past where this had happened before. And again, we have about 50,000 business personal property accounts, and about 20 to 30% of them actually render their properties. All of them are required to, and only about 20 to 30% comply. And so we've used it extensively with several thousand accounts. This is the first one that's actually popped up as a big error. So we've looked into it. Matter of fact, I talked to the business personal property director before I came over, and he assured me that things have been put in place to try. You know, I guess with any time with computers, you try to put things in place to catch whatever you can, and you hope that something else doesn't fall through, or something else that doesn't come through.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you again for coming
Absolutely.
out and speaking with us.
Well,
Appreciate
it's
you
my
spending the
pleasure, and
time.
like I said, I always enjoy coming out and talking, and so anytime you would like me to come back out for some other reason, I'll be more than happy to.
Thank
Be
you.
more than happy to.
Thank you, Mr. Wall. All right, the next is a presentation on a bond issuance. Mr. Shealy, you gonna introduce?
I've got Josh McLaughlin here from BOK. And flick through it up or down.
Fair enough. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll run through this relatively quickly. Before we talk about issuing new bonds, let's talk about how the district manages its portfolio. Since 2005, through refinancing its bonds at a lower rate or incorporating the use of variable rate bonds within its portfolio, the district has saved taxpayers over $97.5 million in future interest costs. I always like to say that number, $97.5 million in savings. If we look at page 2, this is the structure of the district's existing bonds. Currently, the district has just under $577 million of bonds outstanding. It is rated AA- by both Fitch and S&P. Oops. In terms of interest rates, this is the bond buyer index. It's supposed to give you a general indication of what municipal interest rates are doing. As you can see, over the last month, they are starting to creep higher. How much higher they're going to go, I don't know. My crystal ball is not that good. I will tell you the tendency is to think interest rates will go a little higher from here, but over a longer period of time, 6, 12, 18 months. With that said, there is still a very strong demand for Texas School District bonds. We sold bonds last week for another client. They sold 30-year bonds at an interest rate of 4.12%. So we are now over the 4% threshold, but still attractive when you look at this index. In terms of your 2008 and 2017 bond programs, the district has sold $281 million of bonds over the last decade and has just under $638 million of authorized but unissued bonds remaining to sell. Looking at the district's cash flow over the next 12 months, it looks like the district will need another $42 million to fund capital improvements within the district. So we are looking at potential sale in December of 2018. The timing of all future sales will be based upon your future taxable values and needs within the district. In terms of assumptions, the 2018A bonds will be sold with no tax rate increase. We've assumed an interest rate of 4.39%. Again, if you sold bonds today, about that 4.15 level. The bonds will be structured over a 30-year period, but you would have the ability to prepay those bonds prior to final maturity without penalty. And based upon your wealth per student, the state will not give any assistance for the funding of debt service. In terms of your tax values for 18-19, your tax value net of frozen values is roughly $8.7 billion. The largest increase over the last 10 years occurred this year, just under $1 billion. If you look at your growth over the last 5 years, even with that misstep in 15-16, on average, you've grown $543 million per year over the last 5 years. For the purpose of this financing plan, we're assuming you're going to grow at that 5-year average for the next 5 years only. The only reason we cap it at 5 years is we want future growth to pay for the future bond sales. That's demonstrated here on page 8. If you look at the last 2 years, you've grown by double digits, 10.3%, 12.73%. On average, over the next 5 years, we're assuming growth of just 5.6%. So hopefully a very conservative number. Again, the summary of projected results, we would sell $42 million at an interest rate of 4.39%. Again, no tax rate increase. The total net bond payments would be roughly $80 million, and it would have a final maturity of August 2049. Page 10 is an eye exam. I won't go through that, other than if you flip over to the green and look in column L, which is the second to the last one, that is a projection of the district's future tax rate. So you will see after the sale, the district still has additional bond capacity to sell bonds without increasing its overall tax rate. In terms of its overall debt portfolio after this sale, variable rate bonds would represent just under 9% of the district's portfolio. Rating agencies will allow up to 25%. So really an overall portfolio that's well within good bond rating standards and prudent debt management standards. At your November meeting, we will come back and put forward a parameters order for your consideration. This will allow the district's administration to move forward with the sale of the bonds subject to certain parameters. Those parameters will be, we can't issue more than $42 million. The interest rate cannot exceed 5%. The final maturity cannot exceed August 15th, 2049. And we have to get this all completed by May 11th of 2019. With that said, we're trying to move at a much quicker rate. Again, we would meet at your next meeting, November 12th, but we would really try to get this priced shortly after Thanksgiving and proceeds in the district's hands before it goes out to Christmas vacation. I know I went through that relatively quickly. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
With the board's permission, I'm going to move some presentations up, Mr. Shealy. We're going to move to the wellness policy under operations, which is report B2, and our SHAC chairperson is here. And because they're giving up their time to come speak to us, I'm doing my best to get you in before the 6 o'clock break, so welcome.
Thank you. Mr. President, Dr. Chadwell, board members, administrators, I want to introduce John Haynes. He is our SHAC chairperson. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Challenge of Tarrant County. He is a licensed social worker with a Master's of Science in Social Work, and he has 2 children that attend the district. One is at Dozier and one is at Creekview. So with all that said, here's Mr. Haynes.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you for hearing us tonight. Districts with at least one campus participating in the National School Lunch Program or the School Breakfast Program must have a board-adopted wellness policy that meets the requirements of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010 and the corresponding rules that went into effect September 1st, 2018. The SHAC Committee's been working with the Texas Association of School Boards to bring our policies in the district in compliance with this wellness policy plan, to which I believe we have accomplished that task and have submitted those for your review. We're open to hearing any questions or trying to answer anything that we can for you.
We got extensive red line policy where you did go through, and that was to bring us in line with the state requirements.
Correct.
And some of it was just rewording, it appeared.
Some of it's rewording, some of it's the adding of a goal or
Yeah,
adjusting
Okay,
very
goals.
specific goals,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Those were state required
They are.
goals. Okay, got it. All right.
And
Anybody?
putting the meetings out there,
I'm
you know,
sorry.
for the public online, that's
Absolutely.
an added plus. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the policy as it was presented in the report? Thank you very much, then. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And just for the board, just want to make sure we can
Sure.
confirm, we can bring that to you in a consent agenda in the next meeting. That would save Mr. Haynes from having to set the meeting in November. Is that satisfactory for everybody?
Without objection, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're also going to move to Report D, which is the 1819 Saginaw Police Department interlocal agreement, because it is an action item later in the meeting. So, Dr. Baker?
President Newcomb, directors of the board, Dr. Chadwell, I want to give you this report on the Saginaw interlocal agreement. Last year, we had 2 SROs provided by Saginaw PD for our SRO program. This year, we will have 3. Those 3 officers will be at Highland, Wayside, and Saginaw High School. So clearly, an increase in 1 SRO. The supervising sergeant will remain, and so it'll be a combination of those 2 salaries that we will pay. Last year, the district was committed to paying about $86,000 for the half of the salaries for the SROs, those 2, and then about $10,474 for the 10% of the sergeant's salary. We will see an increase of about $46,000, $46,781, and that primarily is due to the increase of that 1 SRO. There's been a slight increase in salaries as well, and so that is reflected. So the district is, the proposed cost will be $133,250 and $12,000 plus respectively for those 2. In addition, the city will provide crossing guards. Again, there is no increase in the salaries for the crossing guards. They will be at the 3 campuses that they were at last year: Bryson, High Country, and Saginaw is for this year. In total, for the SROs and the crossing guards, the total cost for the district will be $151,951.36. I've provided for you a comparison of all of that in a chart. And then, of course, you also have the agreement as well for your review.
What percent, Dr. Baker, did the officers and the sergeant go up? It's kind of hard to tell because we've added an extra person. You said the crossing guards was no increase. Was there a percent increase that we gave the existing SROs?
In salary, I do not have that. In total, obviously, about 46%, I believe it was, in total. But for the salary increase, I do not have that specific amount.
Sergeant Andrus is here. Sergeant Andrus, was there an increase, putting you on the spot, I know that's not why you're here tonight, but
Yeah.
was there an increase in the percentage for the officers this year as their salary? Do you remember what that was?
I want to say 3.
Okay. And we can provide that information this
So the officer got a raise, but the crossing guards didn't, I guess, was the question.
Correct, they always act independently. We've seen that with Fort Worth as well.
Okay,
But we can provide that, we'll send you that information, so you have that,
okay.
what the increases.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Mr. Newt,
Yes.
if you don't mind, I do want to note, and I want to thank the city of Saginaw, they actually, we were coming to them and they approached us, basically at the same time, saying that they wanted to include this in their budget for this next year. So we do appreciate that, because we all came to get this at the same time. So appreciate the work that both Sergeant Andrus and City of Saginaw and Dr. Baker has done on this to bring another officer to the district. Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate that. That's great, and we will be taking action on that later in the meeting. Is there any reason not to go back up and pick up with the reports for which,
No, sir.
all right, Mr. Shealy? Bond capacity? You have two in a row with the budget and bond capacity, so.
Yes, sir. I'm going to go through a couple things here. It's just before I came up here, Josh came to me. He had done some future capacity work, trying to determine what we were looking at as far as probable issuances and available capacity. And his answers came pretty close to what mine, although mine was a quite simplified version. Before I forget, Mr. Newcomb, you asked for a list of issuances and true interest costs associated with those. It went right by me. Dr. Chadwell reminded me today, and we're working on it. We will get those to you in an update. I apologize.
It's all right. Thank you.
It just got by me, sir. There are a couple things that we have to look at. One of them is quantitative, and that is there are three variables that we're going to have to track. Any one of these variables can have a really significant impact on our ability to build projects, and especially the timing. We'll get to those in a minute. The other one is qualitative, and that is we have to decide the benefits. And I say we, you have to decide the benefits or consequences of moving a project up or back. Do we want to, we for years have built schools on a timely basis so that we haven't had to use portables. That is a philosophy, that's a decision. We're anticipating we're going to continue to do that going forward. But there are several projects in here that we may want, security has become very important. And we're talking about moving that up, part of the 42 million that we just talked about. Cleet's going to be coming back to you with some security projects. So there's that analysis that is a completely separate discussion from the quantitative analysis, except that you can't do one without the other, and they're both critical to deciding what we're going to do. Interest rates, when I did this report a couple weeks ago, I think I used 3.75%. Josh just said we're up to 4.16. The Fed has increased interest rates 3 times this year, and they're anticipating another 3 increases by the end of 2019. Initially, those have a short-term impact. I mean, they are the discount rate. However, they're starting to float into the long-term category. There have been several reprieves for our long-term rates, and they've been flights to safety. Texas school bonds are incredibly attractive. We have a very, very strong rate, and the Texas Permanent School Fund gives us AAA. So if there is an upheaval anywhere in the world, and this a couple months ago we had one in Spain and we had one in Italy, major investors in those countries tend to come over looking for safe investments. And Texas school bonds have become quite prized. So that desirability has helped keep the rate fairly low. The yield curve is something that we look at when Josh structures a bond sale. We try to go out and create capacity, and a lot of times you do that depending on, okay, if I go another 3 years, how much more interest am I going to pay? And that can really dictate, because every time we make an issuance, we have to make that issuance anticipating the next issuance. So he just provided me this year's and next year's and the year after and the year after and the year after based on some preliminary analysis, and they're very fuzzy as you go out. But we can't do them in isolation. We have to be able to maintain the capacity going forward. And the last thing is we have to be aware of where we think we're going with interest rates. As long as the economy keeps going along, the Fed's gonna wanna have flexibility, and they buy flexibility by increasing interest rates. And then they'll play economic growth versus inflation, but at least they'll be able to adjust. It got so low that there wasn't much they could do. I want to talk about interest rates. If you've got principal, let's say a 500 million, and your interest rate is 3%, your annual hit is 7.5. For each 0.2% you go up, it increases your annual payment. And those annual payments are really important because then they translate back as a reduction in capacity. If I have to pay an extra $1.5 million right now just for interest, that's gonna limit how much I can issue right now and stay below the 50-cent test. Now, there's a couple things which we have not done. One of them is look at any increase in our capital appreciation bonds. We may use them now and then, but we're not going to rely on those as a basis for issuing debt. And the other one is variable rate bonds. We have not brought in variable rate bonds. Now, they don't, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't do a whole lot of good for the 50-cent test because you have to budget them at prevailing rates, but they do allow you to pay down your debt faster, which is always a good thing because you're paying substantially less. Unless there's a liquidity issue, as there was several years ago, in which case they can kind of burn you. So we only have 4%, 8% of our portfolio is variable rate bonds, haven't issued in several years. So the interest rates we're looking at we're just run-of-the-mill coupon bonds. Right now, they're probably up to 4. I think the Fed meets in December. I don't know that they'll go up again then, and I don't know how fast it will translate. What's that?
He says they're going up.
The schedule you showing us here, Jim, was to show us how much capacity gets consumed by an increase in the rate, but we already said the rate's gonna be 4.2, 4.1,
Right, so if right now it's at 4.2, so that's a hit even over, and I think I put this together about 3 weeks ago. It's gone up last month, 0.25%. 0.25%. 25 basis points is in 1 month a huge increase. So I was probably being a little conservative, but I'm trying to illustrate really what an increase in rates, how it can hit your capacity. Construction pricing, every time Cleet and I meet, when we start talking about moving projects, if we slide it back a year, he starts saying, okay, well, that could be an 8 to 10% increase, and on the high school, that might be $27 million. And those numbers scare you to death because it makes it really, really hard in this bond issue where so much of it is riding on high school number 4. That is the single piece I have to keep my eye on because it's the piece that can really affect our ability to issue bonds. I got a text from Cleet last week that said there's pressure on high school number 4 to move up. Is that right, Cleet? The numbers are coming a little faster than we anticipated. Moving it up is almost not an option because we can't create the capacity. It's just not there. So we have to be really careful as to what those numbers look like and pay attention to the construction costs and the cost of moving up. You move a project up, you're gonna save money, but you're also gonna burn capacity quicker. You move it back, you're gonna build capacity, but it's gonna cost you more. So you're playing those games, and they're not really games, but you're taking those choices, and they have ramifications. Construction costs, like I said, if you have 4 projects, and I'm sure you can see, guess what D is? And I know they're being conservative, but if you delay that project by a year, it could cost as much as $12.5, $13 million, and that's just with a 5% increase. So when we're moving or talking about accelerating or decelerating projects, we have to take the time to sit down and try to estimate what the real cost impact is gonna be. Taxable assessed values. We have our debt service tax rate, which is set artificially low. We are supplementing that with a transfer over from M&O. That transfer has fluctuated as depending on what we've issued and at what interest rate. The transfer over from operations would get a little hard or difficult if we were to have a significant slowdown in growth, or if the economy were to falter. And I'm a little concerned about the economy, and I'm certainly no economist, but we're in, what, our 6th or 7th year of recovery at this point in time, and we have not even had a correction of any significance. I think the Fed's been pretty careful about making sure they can adjust, but at the same time, it's not normal to have an economy moving up at the rate we have for the period of time we have. So I'm a little nervous. Okay. When we get ready to look at taxable assessed values and growth, we have to make some assumptions. And in this one, and once again, I'm not predicting anything, but I am throwing out options. And I predicted 12% next year and 10% the year after. Jeff just said single digits in terms of percent of value increase, but we're also looking at fairly record new construction. So when you add the two together, I think we're probably going to be pretty close to 12%. And there is an revenue impact.
Was the report that we saw earlier, didn't he show that we were starting every year for the next 5 years, we were gonna be at 5%, not 12
Yes.
and 10?
Yes, he did. I think it started at 6 and goes down. If I remember right, it starts right at 6 and then goes down to 5.
Yeah, so are we going by that number, or are we going by the 12?
What number you want to go by? I'm going to get to that, Tim.
Okay.
Here's my problem. People say, well, what's our capacity? And my response, jokingly and seriously, is what do you want it to be? Because I don't know what the growth is going to be. I can say 12%, and if it's 12%, we're going to have it more capacity. But his job is to be conservative and make sure we don't get into trouble. My job is maybe to be a little less conservative than he is, but you notice I've got it ramping down in 2 years to 5%. So you might say, well, this is going to go on longer than that. 2008 through 2010, I watched actually flat line, if not negative, adjustments to TAV.
Well, and that's where we kind of got in this situation to begin with about up against the cap, because we had a higher growth rate, assumed the 3-year, what did we have in the original plan? And it was conservative, but it was the 3 to 5%.
It was 3 years. Yeah. I can't remember. But
Anytime it goes though to what it did those years, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're gonna have a capacity issue or a tax rate issue because you have negative growth.
Right, and I'm saying we've
No
already
matter what.
we've already had this once before them, because we didn't expect to hit that cap as soon as we did, because we didn't have the growth that we projected when we sold
in
those bonds.
2008 to 2010, we flatlined on growth. We did not flatline on kids. We had kids continue to come in, and the demand for new schools slowed a little bit, but we could not adjust to that by continuing to build schools. We ended up adjusting ratios. We ended up using spaces that maybe weren't originally intended to be classrooms. We had to adjust within existing buildings. Those are all changes you can make, but our analysis assumes all things being equal. Yes, I think we're going to have 12%. When we get to planning to go forward, I have used 12%. But everybody needs to realize that's my guess. I think the 12% is pretty accurate. 10%, I'm not quite as sure about. And the 5%, I'm hoping, I think very likely it'll be better than that, but like I said, this economy's gone a long time without a correction. So we'll make those assumptions, but those are assumptions that need to be made.
So the far right-hand column that has the running numbers, we're trying to get to the 600 number that we have remaining.
And it's
And
not
so
there.
that's where we need to get it in order to do all the things that are in the bond.
You have to put them all, you have to put all those pieces together.
Correct.
And then, but the end result is only as accurate as your assumptions are. So if you assume TAVs are gonna increase faster than what shows that, which I think is highly likely, I would bet on them increasing faster than not increasing at that speed. I think that's a fairly good bet. The interest rate, we have at 37 cents. That's what we told the community. I haven't moved it off of that number. The assumed interest rate is low, but we will work within tolerable levels. So those are the three pieces that I'm playing with. And I constantly second guess myself as to what those are actually gonna be. And it makes it hard for me to walk up here and lay something out and say this is what it's gonna be. Because based on those assumptions, this is where I think we're heading. Priority of needs, high school number 4, we have elementary school 16, 17, and 18, Wayside Middle School replacement, major additions, expansions, and renovations, and these are big systems, and we also have land purchases. So those are the things that were in this bond that we're looking at. Structural, like I said, variable rate bonds, it doesn't help with budgeting, but it can reduce your principal a little quicker. Capital appreciation bonds, they can increase capacity because you don't worry about the 50-cent test till you're way out there, and they basically shove the debt off to your children's children, which we haven't done and don't intend on doing. God forbid that we have growth without value increase again. That's what happened, and that really was difficult. If the growth comes sooner than anticipated, I hope the values come with it. And we're also, and I'm going to get into this again later, we're also looking at the impact of special populations on capacity. Special populations initially, when they were growing with capacity, kind of fit nicely, but in conversations with Heather, that population appears to be growing at about twice the rate of our normal population. That has a hit on capacity, and we've got to try to come to terms with what that is. All right, this one's busy. Okay, I'm gonna start with the easy ones. The ones at the top, growth-driven, critical path, those are the schools we need for, to accommodate new kids. We're getting new kids in, we don't have much of a choice. Those things are gonna hit, and they're gonna hit, and toward the, let's see if I even, yeah. Over here I have the completion date. This is when this is when we told the community, and those dates, the only one I have that might slow down or actually might accelerate a bit is elementary 18. And that's just based on my reading the tea leaves. But all the rest of them, I left pretty much where they were. You get down below the lines and you get into the security and the fields, land purchases, athletics, capital improvements. We have the $5 million for the natatorium, the joint venture with the YMCA, the admin building in Wayside. Those can be split for the most part, with the exception of the 3 that are highlighted in orange. Those, once you start into those, you might be able to break athletics up a little bit, but once you jump into those, you're kind of committed to the project. And how you accelerate or decelerate those 3 projects really has a significant impact. there is nothing that says we have to look at this today and make a decision. And I'll know a whole lot more next May, even though they're preliminary, than I know right now. And I'll know a whole lot more in September than I know right now, because we're gonna watch all of those variables come in. But we have to understand as we come back that we're gonna make, the biggest decision we're gonna address is how we sequence those, in what order, and at what point in time.
Jim, I just want to tell the board, as Cleet and Jim and I sit down and work on really what the bond projects are, and he'll have some of this in his operations report later. This is the process we go through, so we wanted to let you know the process we go through, what we consider, but also the spreadsheet. And so Jim put this together, and we thought this was a good communication device that we'll start using and updating. And so every time we meet, there'll be some subtleties to this that change based upon actual prices. So for example, some of the projects have come in underneath the costs that we were authorized to spend, so that frees up capacity in other areas. And so we'd like to keep bringing this to you as a communication piece to know not only what are we prioritizing, but all the funding availability and the rolling capacity that you see there. So you'll keep seeing this updated every so often.
Would you leave the authorization column as it is, so we'll know?
Yes.
And the completion date we took, the committee and us agreed upon?
Yes, sir,
With the
absolutely.
community, so those two can stay the same, and we can look at updates and changes as they come to us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
And
so if you could add like the actual, if it does come in lower, so you have the original and the actual cost column.
we can do that.
As they-
And I like that because those are the promises we've made,
Right.
so those are good.
The one thing I would like to point out, if I can find it, is you'll notice this red number here. That's where we have a capacity problem. And Josh did some layering out with me earlier and came up and said, you're a little tight on capacity. And yeah, we are. We're about $46 million tight on capacity. Now, a couple things. Number one, that isn't that big a number. Looks like a big number, but I guess I've been in this business too long. That's not that big a number that it can't be overcome. It's based on 5% growth. It's based on all of the projects prior to that date coming in at authorization and not below authorization. So there's a lot of variables. And as we move forward, we're going to get more clarity. But what it does tell us is that right now, all things being equal, we get a little tied out in 2023, 2024.
And this is with the 12 and the 10, so yours has us even getting tighter sooner.
Yes.
So it's nice when you, the way I build my model, he would never consider doing anything like this. But it gives me a gauge as to where I think pressure points are going to be. And like I said, the nice thing is, before we get to that point, we will have pricing on the high school. And that is huge.
Well, I think the variables too, as we go through this, if we use 12 and 10 all the way down, it's gonna look all the way different, obviously.
Right.
So what if we have unused capacity? What's the worst thing that happens there? We know if we go over, we've talked about over, but let's say we don't start a project, we did have more capacity than we utilized. What's the
If we-
downside there?
If we develop capacity
Mhm.
and we don't issue bonds,
Right.
that capacity begets capacity because it actually increases your cash flow. So it will create a little bit more of a cushion later on. If you're issuing right up to the level of your capacity, then you better be right at the level at your future assumptions or you're not gonna get there.
Okay.
So, now, I say that, but delaying it also
More
increases the
cost,
construction
right,
costs.
that also increases our cost, so as we go along, we have to be comfortable with whatever cushion we have, understanding that if we leave capacity there, we're looking at increased cost of building the facilities.
And here's the other factor, is that all the ones under growth-driven critical pathway have an M&O expense. Under the specified projects, those M&O expenses already exist. In some cases, the renovations actually produce less electricity, for example,
Very
and there may
very
be an
possible.
ROI. So We look at both of those factors though. So the replacement of Wayside, for example, that building most likely will cost less in energy and won't cost any more in M&O expenses in terms of staffing. So it's,
With Wayside in 21, 22, that 40 million number, does that mean that's what, if we built it that early, that it would cost 40 million to build it?
well, and this is a discussion, he left those really high numbers in there. Wayside was, that number is higher than we think it will cost for there, because right now, Marine Creek Middle School is coming in at what, Clete?
40, a little under 40 million for construction.
Okay. And so if we were able to do that earlier, as we have it projected here as a discussion point, it won't cost that much. It shouldn't cost that much.
I guess, and my point is, if we do have capacity, we start moving those, just like Wayside. And Boswell Athletics, I don't see a number until you get way out there on it, but it's budgeted for 77 million, so you save 37 million. So every one of those that you can do that far, if we have the capacity to do now, that's nearly 40 millions of savings that you said we were 40 million over if we take everything out to the end. Is that?
But you still have to issue the bond, so there's an
That's what I'm
absolute
saying.
cap.
If the capacity
To
is
the-
there to issue bonds to build it sooner, I think the sooner we build the stuff.
But the cap has a lifespan associated with it, so to me, the big issue would be you move so much to probably Wayside forward, such that you've taken up too much capacity in each of those bonds already that you can't build like the high school when you have to
And
have
high
it,
school number
right?
4 is the piece that, and I think I've been pretty consistent saying, that is the single centerpiece of this entire bond program. Because anything that happens with interest rates, with TAVs, with timing, with construction costs, with respect to high school number 4, has a major ripple effect through the entire bond program. I agree, Tim, I agree. And one thing I'm gonna try to build in here is an adjustment to the cost, but I'm gonna have to meet with the architects and see what their estimates came through. I think I think the Boswell Athletics is the athletic programs are 60 million on this authorization list. That number was supposed to be completed in 2022. So that number, 60 million in 2022, that number, if my understanding is correct, should be targeted to 2022. So moving it to 2022 isn't going to reduce it. That's part of the reason that I have the 2 columns, which is, this is the original completion date. This is what I changed it to for not much any reason, just moving numbers. And this is how it moved. A negative number means we moved it forward. A positive number means we moved it back. So that's the number, and I'm going to use that to try to adjust the cost. But it comes to a point where I can put so many calculations in this thing that it obscures the theory behind what we're trying to do. If you know you move it up and do it sooner, it's going to cost less. We can probably talk through what the adjustment may be. And like I said, Clete and I have been working on trying to quantify some of this. There's a lot of projects, and it's really complicated because of the underlying criteria.
So how much money, is there a way to know exactly how much money we have sitting in bond, the bond capacity, and whatever that number is, how much of that money is being set aside for high school 4?
No. I can give you my best guess, but unless you can tell me what TAVs are gonna be, what interest rates are gonna be, and what the true construction
I'm
cost of
talking
that.
about as we sit right now today.
No, I can't do it.
We don't know today, as we sit here, our total bond capacity
I can
exactly
give you,
today.
I can tell you what the total bond capacity, well, actually, that number's,
The
we can
bond
give
money
you.
we have available, if we wanted to spend it just for our knowledge purposes, how much money is sitting there if the district wanted to spend it at today?
I could give you a number, but even that number is based on your estimate of future TAV growth because you have to pass the 50-cent test. And you pass the 50-cent test by looking at your payments, which are based on your taxable assessed value.
That's what I thought that's what I'm asking. As we said, we know what our TAVs came
But you
in
have to
at.
project them into the future because you have to verify that you can pass the 50-cent test for an extended period into the future. And that's, getting into the future is what's problematic.
Is that blue part on there where it says funding availability, isn't that kind of what he's
That's kind of a
asking?
running capacity.
That's
number.
what he's asking though, right? That's how much we would generate based on the assumptions you have in there now.
Yeah, you take
But you
the,
want that back to a project.
you take the
at a project
blue
level.
plus the principal pay
He wants
down,
that broken
and then
out to a
subtract it from the green, and you get those numbers that say rolling capacity.
Well, in fact, that's what he's done because the projects that you can see are in the years 18, 19, 19, 20 are eating up that capacity because we're issuing bonds.
Right.
And the growth is generating in the blue, plus what we paid down in that rolling capacity is what we have. I guess you could call that unused, Tim. 1920, there's 71 million of unused capacity. So you could, if you're saying, could you move up some projects? Yeah.
That's my question. Could you move some up? So how much of that 71 million are we saving to, in the quote, savings account to save for high school 4, if high school 4 is our big project that we have to make sure we can fund? I mean,
Given the red number that's up there,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we're not saving enough.
Right. Because see, you could see, Tim, high school 4 is there, 75 million in 21, 22, 95 million in 22, 23, and 90 million in 23, 24.
so you're saying we're 4 million short in that?
That's
in that year.
46 million short.
46 million.
I mean, talking in 21, 22,
Yep,
we're 4 million short that year.
40,
No, that's over.
On 21, 22, it says 75 million for high school 4, and our overage is 71 million in the blue.
right, well, yeah, that is correct. We're using it up. We're short.
We're using it up,
4
so
million.
we're short $4 million.
Right. But we're using it
Am I
from what-
reading that right now?
Right, and we're using it from what we've rolled forward
Okay.
in the.
And we'll
in the-
run out of the roll forward.
Or run out of the roll forward in 23, 24 under these assumptions.
Yes,
I think I can clarify that,
Yes.
so.
that makes sense.
Okay. I knew we'd get through with that by 6.
I'm not done.
I know, that's why the audience has patiently sat there going, okay, we're gonna get any break at all? We're gonna leave your second report, Mr. Shealy, for after the 7 o'clock session. So,
There are a few things that I will work on to try to clarify some of that,
all right,
which I think I can do, but I want to leave some of the base data there as well.
I just like looking at it this way though, with the projects and the years and the original number and kind of where we go versus what we originally promised.
And we can provide that to you in Excel form, because that's what I've done. I've kind of looked at it, allows you to see what happens, especially that rolling capacity when you move things. So if y'all would like that in a,
Yeah, I'll send an active file.
can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is currently 6:25 PM on October 22nd, 2018. This board will now recess for dinner and then reconvene in a closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act: 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.075, and 551.082. Get all that description, nobody listens anyway. This Public meeting of the Board of Education, the Eagle Mountain Saginaw Independent School District. The board is reconvening the public meeting on October 22nd, 2018 at 7 o'clock p.m. We'll now consider the subject set forth in the posted agenda. Welcome to our October meeting. Those of y'all who joined us at 5, I know you're really happy we're back right at 7 because we ran a little over on the report session. But we are ready to resume the meeting, and to start us off, we have Watson High School, Miss Melanie Stitt, to introduce 3 of her finalists.
Thank you so much for having us this evening. I would like to introduce Cami Shimakanis, and her uncle here is Mike Oates. So Cami, please come on up. I also have Vanessa Campos, and joining us this evening is her daughter, Inesme, her fiance, Rodrigo, and her mother, Alma Campos, and her stepfather, Alex Mascaro. Please come on up. And then I have Mrs. Sky Hudi and her mother, Kathy Sanchez.
All right.
If everyone would please rise for the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas
Flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Heavenly Father, thank you that we can all be here today. Please bless the board members that they can all have an open mind and get through the things that need to be discussed for our school district, and in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. The reason I'm attending Watson is because I'd like to graduate now instead of when I'm 22, because I got behind in credits, and then when I moved out here, because I moved from a different state, it just put me further behind. For 4 years before coming to Texas, I was doing my schooling through an online school in Arizona. I missed half a year of 8th grade and ended up having to redo it. And so that put me a whole year behind. And then in 9th grade, I failed a class, and in 10th grade, I failed 2 more. All the classes I took in Arizona required you to take that, were required in order to graduate in that state. And moving out here, I found out that some of the required classes in Arizona aren't required for Texas. So not all of my credits ended up transferring over. That put me 2.5 years behind when I was supposed to graduate. Because of Watson, I'm going to graduate this school year, and I plan on walking with both Watson and Boswell. Watson has given me the opportunity to graduate on time, and I'll get to graduate with my cousin as a senior at Boswell. I'm grateful to Ms. Stitt for accepting me into her school and the staff at Watson. They want us to do our best, and they help us any way that they can. On my first day at Watson, Ms. Stitt told us, I think was what she said, that every teacher there wanted us to succeed, and every student accepted wants to be successful, or something like that. I can't remember. But I know that every student at Watson wants to graduate, and I know that we will because of the support we get.
Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sky Hudi, and I'm 17 years old. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I'm beyond blessed to be attending Watson High School. Throughout my whole life, I've struggled with school. I never was a student who was excited to attend school. In fact, school was a dreadful place for me most of the time. I was feeling very low about myself, and school never gave me the confidence. So being given the opportunity to come here to Watson
has restored my faith into learning and getting the excitement to come to school every day and in learning something new. Having these amazing teachers right behind us through the hard work, stress, and tears made a difference. Being on a small campus, I felt like everyone knew me and supported me. I'd like to thank my mother for pushing me and believing in me when I didn't. You've watched me struggle when I was at my lowest, and you watched me rise above and conquer my problems. Without you, I wouldn't stand here today. I want to thank you all for supporting our small school. It has made a difference to me and to so many others like me, and to the teachers that brought me here. I give my gratitude to you. I thank you all for also believing in me. You see me struggle and you watch me evolve into the young woman I am today. And I can't thank you all enough. Because of you, I am the person I always wanted to be.
Hello, I am Vanessa Campos. I am 17 years old and I am in the Watson Senior Service Committee. But before I get to that, I want you all to know the reason why I attended Watson High School. I came to Watson in the 2017-2018 school year because I was in a really bad place at a time and I did not care what had happened to my schooling or what I accomplished. Since I have had my daughter, who is now 1.5 years old, I am trying to graduate and make a better future for her and provide for her everything that I did not have. So I joined Watson to get credits quickly, and by doing so, I have succeeded amazingly. That is because they push me to do better, they keep me on task to succeed. It is because of them that I am pushing so hard to graduate, and I am very much thankful for that. Another benefit for me at Watson is the parenting classes where I have been guided by Ms. Lumsden to improve my parenting skills, to where she gives me tips on things I don't know or things I am not sure about. But today makes me feel like I have accomplished something and that I am bettering my life and my daughter's life. Being in the Senior Service Committee is such a wonderful experience because we are helping the unfortunate and giving back to the community. And that is just a little part of what we do. The goal of the Senior Service Committee is to give students the opportunity to experience the joy of volunteering. I also want to thank the school board for giving everyone a second chance by supporting Watson High School. Thank you for having me here today.
So these are just 3 of our representatives. We started a senior service committee this year, and we pick 9 representatives every 9 weeks. And these are 3 of those 9, and we have also had 3 of the other 9 that have already graduated. So they were not able to be here tonight because they've already finished school and had other commitments. So thank you guys for having us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Students, that was wonderful. Good evening. It's my privilege to do a special introduction tonight. If Jennifer Thomas would step forward, I'd like to introduce you guys to our brand new assistant principal at Prairie Vista Middle School. You probably know Miss Jennifer Thompson. She's been in our district for a few years as a teacher, coach, athletic coordinator, and now as a new assistant principal, and she's doing a phenomenal job. Every time I see someone from Prairie Vista, they tell me what a great job she's doing, being visible, being helpful, and just working with the kids, relational as well. Let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Thompson. She came to us. She has 20 years of experience in education, 13 of those in EMS ISD. That's a good number to start on a new journey in this. She received a Master's of Education in Administration from Lamar University and a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology from West Texas A&M out in Canyon, Texas. Where I believe, did you play basketball? Or?
I actually played at a junior college in Clarendon.
That's right, that's right. So she's from good old West Texas place. We welcome you, and I'm just happy to get to announce her tonight.
And I thank you guys for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody sign up to speak? All right, that takes us through communications to the action items. The first one is to appoint the 18-19 Board Nominating Committee. So with the board's approval, I would like to appoint Steve Newcomb, Tim Daughtry, and Paige Ring to be the 18-19 committee. I can make that as a motion from the chair, and I will.
Second.
By Liz, any discussion? Anybody else want to volunteer in place? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion carries 5-0. All right, next is to consider approving the 1819 Saginaw Police Department interlocal agreement. We heard a report on it earlier in the evening.
I move we approve the 2018-19 Saginaw Police Department interlocal agreement as presented.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Tim. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none, motion carries 5-0. Switch over to that again. Next is act on bids and proposals. Mr. Shealy.
I move we award the proposal of HVAC retrofitting at Bryson Elementary, not to award.
There you go.
The proposal of HVAC retrofitting at Bryson Elementary School.
Motion by Donna and second by Liz to not award the proposal of HVAC retrofitting at Bryson. Any questions? Any further explanation?
No, there'll be a report here in just a few minutes that Mr. Welch will provide that provides an overview of the work that we're doing at Bryson. What basically happened in this case is that we had some other work that we needed to do at Bryson that came to our knowledge after the HVAC proposal was put out, and therefore we're going to wait for this and doing this all at one time, and therefore we'll get some cost benefit there and also not have work that has to be undone. And he'll go into greater detail during the operation report.
All right. Any other questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is a bid for the multi-component data management system for special programs.
I move we award the proposal of multi-component data management system for special programs to Success Ed for an estimated annual total of $82,530. Annual total is based on student enrollment.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is to designate the competitive seal proposals as the best value method for Highland Middle School and Creekview Middle School renovations.
I move we designate competitive seal proposals as the method that provides the best value for the district for Highland Middle School and Creekview Middle School renovations.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Paige. Questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is to designate the competitive seal proposals as the best method for Bryson Elementary School renovations.
I move we designate competitive seal proposal as the method that provides the best value for the district for Bryson Elementary School renovations.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And there are none. Motion carries 5-0. Next is to consider the delegation of authority to sign documents for the acceptance of the transfer of the right-of-way in front of Saginaw High School to the Texas Department of Transportation as approved by the Board of Trustees in August. Mr. Shealy.
We approve the action to accept the offer from the Department of Transportation, but they have asked for verification that Dr. Chadwell has the authority to sign the documents and receive the check. Therefore, we'd recommend that the board delegate the authority to execute the documents to the superintendent for the sale of the defined properties to the Texas Department of Transportation for $38,935, which includes $6,325 for damages of the remaining property.
Second.
So moved by Liz, second by Tim. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 5-0. That got us through the action items, and we go back to the reports from the 5 o'clock session. And the next one is a budget update, which is on page 43. Mr. Shealy.
We'll try to make this a little quicker than the last one.
Let's hope so.
You need the time card?
Nah,
We
I
usually reserve those with our
can
card.
move quicker than that.
I know, but I think, you know, it needs to come out here.
I don't think she's ever had one quite that long.
In an effort to give the board update status on certain key revenue and expense categories, every 6 weeks, we're gonna be bringing some comparisons. And the first one that is on page 45 of your packet shows the numbers that we used in the summary of finance, the PEMS values for the first 6 week period, the variance, and then the weight is how much additional or how much money we get for that. So for example, on refined ADA, we get a weight of 1. They're worth what they're worth. But if you go down to speech, that's worth 5 times, and predominantly because it's a single period during the day. Homebound is worth 5 times. So assuming, let's say $6,000 per student, 5 times would be an additional $30,000 because those individuals are also included up in the refined ADA. At $36,000 per unit, being off a couple units can make a pretty substantial hit. When we went through and looked at these numbers, we noticed some anomalies, which we're working at pulling right now. They have to do with PEMS reporting. The variance right now is minus almost $600,000. That is a snapshot date. We expect that number to grow up to break even by the end of October. Also with the corrections in the PEMS data, I think we're pretty much spot on with our state revenue. SPED impact is up about $156,000. Gifted and talented is down about 47. We watch those because those can be 2 areas that require additional staffing.
Those budgeted numbers were done by the population in those areas from the previous school year rolled forward, or is there some estimation of increase in particular area?
We look at those numbers for the past 3 or 4 years, and then we look at the change in population and how those numbers have reacted as a percentage of overall population, and we do project them, and then I usually cut them back a little bit.
Okay.
There are some that you can't. Homebound, state school, those are really difficult. You know, I kind of have to go with what Heather tells me on those. So a lot of it's just observation.
So those summary of finance, those are units that we're looking at? It's
Yes.
32 units of speech, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, and it's 32, and that means there's probably, I think each child's in one period, so there's like 1/6 of a child, so the number would be around 200, 180, 200.
Okay,
I think.
got it.
It's been a while since I've looked at that one.
All right.
But we don't have 32 kids in speech, we have a few more than that. The other one we're looking at very closely is the levy versus the levy that we received from Tarrant County on September 1st. Variance right now is positive 168,000. There will be supplemental additions to the levy. Looking at the last couple of years, that could be as much as 720,000. Projected, I think we're going to be about 800,000 and change. There's a couple things that are making it a little more difficult for us to project. One of them is the amount of protested of accounts that aren't completely settled. In July, there were almost 600, as of the certification date, there were almost $631 million worth of accounts. Over 10 billion, that's not a real high percentage, but it is enough that it's several $100,000 depending on how those come out, which is where the 888. The second note is something we started seeing a couple years ago, and that is a really rapid increase in the frozen levy, which is over 65. So as fast as we're growing, which we are growing very quickly, and as much as values are going up, people don't move out of Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. So what we're seeing is as the population ages, they're not leaving, they're staying here, and their tax values are getting frozen. That is an almost unprecedented increase. I have never seen anything like it. It usually goes up by a couple, 200,000 or 300,000.
You have to apply for that, right?
What's
You
that?
have to apply for that.
Yes, you do.
Because-
So I was really surprised. That's a number that we're now having to take into account. As we go through it and we watch these more and more, there are numbers that are becoming, it's kind of like the special ed impact on capacity.
When do we know that number, though?
What's that?
When do we know that number?
We know it when we see the levy.
But in September, when we get the final, it has gone up, you're saying, since that, okay.
But we had known it was increasing, so we had thrown a pretty heavy factor in there, so we're okay.
Okay.
The last thing, and these are by function, and I didn't do it by fund. So what I've done is I've looked at the major salary categories, because this is the one that it's 85% of our budget. It's the one that's easiest to project, and it's the one that produces, if we have a variance and it's in here, it's probably going to be significant. In looking at the variances, I highlighted 3 in yellow that are fairly significant positive variances. Teachers and professional, aid and clerical, and TRS contribution. Those numbers surprised me, especially when the Social Security Medicare number actually dropped, is it showing a negative variance. The software automatically projects these categories based on positions approved by the board and midpoint salaries. So to have a variance, depending on how many positions may or may not be open or what we actually hired people for, is not all that unusual. Insurance, a lot of times, is kind of a guess. What percentage of your employee population is going to take insurance? If the premiums go up, we know the percentage is going to go down. So some of those are related to other factors, but to see those 3 factors go up and then be associated with a Social Security Medicare drop just is a little odd. Now, those are fairly significant increases. I do believe we probably have some slack, but I have to reconcile a couple of those numbers that are just a little bit, I don't understand the relationship. They should be more direct. So at this point in time, we are, in all 3 areas, I'm comfortable. Those 3 areas are the areas that if there's going to be a significant adjustment to the budget, it will come from those 3 areas.
So we have a positive $5 million in there above what we thought we were going to have.
That's what the GL's showing right now, but I've got some questions as to the validity of that number.
And this is a new report that you're giving us quarterly, is that what
Every
we've
6
got?
weeks.
Every 6 weeks?
We mirror it to actually, this is 1 month. The
Okay.
payroll numbers are on 1 month. All the other numbers are going to be every 6 weeks.
Okay. This is something that Mr. Shealy discussed with us about bringing us updates periodically throughout the school, throughout the year. I thought it was quarterly, but it's every 6 weeks, so. Will these be just in our updates, or do you plan on making a presentation? Have you thought about that?
I hadn't thought that far ahead. If there's something that needs to be discussed, I'll bring them in.
Okay.
If it stays as
Fair
an,
enough.
I mean, I need to explain what's happening here because
No,
I
I
don't know.
agree.
But I think if everything's tracking the way it should, we probably can go with a
That the same,
weekly.
we talked about that same question that you brought up, that it doesn't make any sense.
No.
If the Social Security Medicare is remaining the same or dropping in the salaries.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yes, we'll give you an update, and as we're going to be mirroring this with budget amendments for known adjustments and transfers. So those will be coming, they're relatively minor. These are the three big areas. I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Shealy. Mr. Welch, we finally have your operations report. Thank you for letting us move some things around and one of your reports is already done, the wellness policy.
First of all, we have some pictures of Marine Creek Middle School. And this is the main corridor from the, in area E. So you'll be, when you come into the gym area, you'll be looking down this hallway. And this is the minor gym on the left, the smaller one, and there's the dressing rooms. Back in the coaches area and the kids' dressing rooms, and you can see the hard ceilings already going in there also. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. I went the right way. And there's part of the kitchen, and of course you can see the ceiling grid going in, all the ductwork's in, and that's the kitchen serving line. And that's the stage. You can see all the work that's done up in the ceiling. It's not a flat ceiling, it's got a lot of character to it, so that's moving right along. This is pretty unique. So when you come into the, to watch basketball or volleyball, this is the main entrance into that area, so this will have some soft seating in it, so there's a little congregation area that we'll have when you come in those doors. Band hall, choir room, choir's on the right, band hall's on the left. As you can see, it's about to get its ceiling. And as you move into area A, to the left with the gentleman with the yellow shirt, that's the front door. This is the media center stairs, and then you have a way to go upstairs also from this point. Library's to the right. This is looking directly into the library from that stairs we just saw. So right above there, you have the second story, which you'll be able to look down into the library. And then there's a big kind of multi-purpose room to the left on the second story. Okay, so area B, so you have A, B, and C, and as you keep going, you're going to see less done in each area until you get to C, and you'll see how we're progressing in there. But you can see the rough end carpentries going in area B. This is the science lab area. Area C, on the first floor, you can see they hadn't got as far. You know, they got the left side that hadn't been completed. And then when you look on the second floor, they still haven't got, the carpentry hadn't gone up that far. That's from looking down from the second story down into the library. And this area B, so what you see there is that's the mezzanine where all our equipment, HVAC equipment will be located up on that. And that concrete's been poured. And then area C, since then they have poured that mezzanine, so it's in place. And just kind of looking in the, from the back end, and you can kind of see where the brick and the rock have been laid. And notice also, I just like to brag on, they've done a great job. It's a clean site. If you notice around, you don't ever see any trash on it. They mow the front. You know, they have their fence up, they have pogue there, but also they mow the sidewalk on that, so it just looks a lot sharper. They really take pride in what they're doing. And that's in the front of the building, area C. So, nothing's really dragging back behind. We lost obviously about 10 days because of the rain we just had. But again, as we move from the gym area, you're gonna see that complete. Within 2 months, we'll probably do punches and then just lock that place up and just keep moving along, heading toward building C. It'll progress in that manner. Any questions with that on Marine Creek Middle School? Next thing I have is some summer bond projects to go over. These are possible things that we could do. I will hopefully terminate them in the summer, but some of these will be able to start a little bit sooner. The first thing that I have down is the Highland Middle School and Creekview Middle School renovation. So with Mr. Shealy's presentation earlier, I got from what he presented anywhere from 14 to 16 million dollars of money that we can spend. So this list right here is about $14.3 million. That's just an estimate. Some could go over, some could be less, but that's kind of what I figured out from his numbers. And so on some of these, I've kind of, instead of just doing the library and the office movement, I've also included things in there that we could probably pull out of there that, since we're on that campus at that time, it might be good to go ahead and do some of these projects since we're already mobilized there. So on Highland, the gym floor, that's the original floor, it needs to be sanded. And then the LED lighting in that gym would also probably need to be put in. It has no landscaping or any beds, so we would probably want to put that in there also. And then at Creekview, there's a little more things that need to really get accomplished. Their tennis courts and the screens need to be redone, the gym floor, the gym lighting, the track, and it's the original carpet from 2004, and the stair treads need to be replaced. So just kind of a grouping of things to put in there. Yes, Liz?
Will they have some landscape in the front? It looks like when you walk in, those are wood chips, is that right? On both sides, if I remember correctly?
At Creekview?
Creekview, when you walk in?
To the right, they've got some crushed granite. They did a little sidewalk with that. But,
Maybe that's what it is.
but to the right, I mean, you remember Highland, you got that dead area where
Yeah,
there's not
you
much
do,
sun.
yeah.
So we're either going to come up with something there, either
Well, I
concrete
like the
in.
rocks that Highland has, I do like those,
Yeah.
because the kids can sit on them. But, okay, I just,
We are adding landscaping in the front there.
You are?
Where there'll be a
Good.
different look there,
okay, good.
particularly with the front office being in at that front entrance now. So it'll have a different look.
The next thing is under child nutrition, the Bryson Elkins and Eagle Mountain kitchen and cafeteria improvements. So that's in its planning stages. We've mobilized that, so we're just getting that ready to come to y'all, and it'll go out to bid. So really what you see now is you have wooden doors, things like that. It'll be the storefront glass and the new serving line, so it'll be more attractive. The next one is the Bryson Elementary renovation. So I have a few things in there that I would probably go ahead and like to put in there. To expand the gym, go ahead and do that since we're going to be mobilizing on this site. Also put in the LED lighting. It'll also get new security cameras. And we want to add additional controls with the card readers on that one. I mean, it has some, but we need to add some to it. The masonries, put a dumpster. If you look over there right now, the first thing you see is those dumpsters on the cafeteria side, something to shield that from the road. We also have to secure the office traffic that comes in there. Right now, there's a few things for the back end that we need to put in there like we're putting in all our schools. We want to put a fire sprinkler system in it. We want to replace some of the ceiling tiles and work up on the drive-up appeal of Bryson. The only thing I'm not really sure about right now is I don't really have an answer, is the playground cover for Bryson. It has about 5 different playgrounds. And so our standard playground, do you put that in there, then you have to put the shade structure on it. So the other ones won't have it, obviously, but I just don't have a good plan for that right now, how that would put together.
Are they using the 5 playground?
My guess is they are.
For different grade levels, I
Is it
think,
grade
that's how it
level?
was designed.
Was it different grade level?
And I think the structures are a little bit different to fit the age appropriateness
I think,
of
yes.
grade, yeah.
But it's like having 5 huge playgrounds.
Yeah.
So we spend the most amount of money just on wood chips on that place alone, so.
Did the PTA do those, or did we, PTA do?
So we hate to tear something out that they put in and so forth. Okay, we have 17 campuses where we want to do the security upgrades, and they could include the cameras, access, the controlled entry renovations, and the PA. So each campus is different, but there's 17 of them that we'd be touching. And then we have the playground shade structures. We have those at 6 locations. You can see those. The carpet at Gilliland needs to be replaced. And what I have there is the Boswell High School, the grass fields to be replaced. We've looked at that water supply for the well again, the Trinity well and the Biloxi. We went out last Friday. We met with another well guy, came out, the one we've been with for over 25 years. We just walked through the wells. You know, could we drill another well and find some water? Yes, but it's gonna have salt in it. It's gonna have the same problems. Will they recharge? They might. They probably will, as much rain as we're getting. But the reality is that those wells are only gonna really be watering the green belt in the back by the cafeteria and to the band hall, because they won't be using the fields. That'll be city water once we make that transition. So I would recommend that we go ahead, because of the water situation, we go ahead and start turfing those. And I know there's expense to it, but then there's also expense to having, if we don't do it, then we're gonna be on city water for at least another year. And that's, the time you put those two costs of city water versus what you'd be paying in bond payments, I think it's a wash. Also, we want to do the band lighting. Ever since I've been to Boswell, they've not enough lighting out there to practice, so we want to get that resolved. And then we have tennis shade structures. We've talked about those before. We just need to get that in the line and get it in the pipeline coming through. And then Copper Creek Construction Elementary, which will be in February. So we have a lot of items that we have lined up for next year.
Mr. Welch, do you mind mentioning the work that was done at Saginaw High School on the lighting systems? If the board members haven't been there, that's dramatically different in the gym areas, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, the maintenance department went in there and we did some work on the bleachers. And then we decided to go ahead, it's kind of had a yellowish floor from the original stain, so it was sanded down and now it's a natural oak white, kind of like Boswell's floor. So that helped brighten it up, but also all the lighting in that main gym area has been replaced with LED lighting. So it's a dramatic difference that you would see. In fact, it's the most lit area that we have inside of the building.
Looks great.
So it just changed the whole complexity of that place. But we still have a few more in that area we need to replace, but we did get those two done.
And we'll do that in the main corridor during a renovation process as well in the future. I don't believe we have a timeline on that yet, but it'll have that same kind of effect down that main corridor.
Did we do something about the dark glass in the entrance to the?
Yes,
So
you
took
did that,
out.
what, last summer?
Yeah, but it's brighter there
Oh,
also,
yes. Mhm.
light-wise.
Yes,
Yeah.
you can see people
Yeah.
on the other side of it. That used to be a challenge.
The last thing I have on here is the middle school attendance zones. Our first meeting is Thursday night at 6:30 at Ed Wilkie in the cafeteria, and then Tuesday night at Creekview Middle School at 6:30 in the cafeteria also. So Friday we sent we sent it to the principals to send home to their with their students, so they emailed it to the parents, so forth. So we will share that plan on Thursday night and get their input, and then go from there. Make adjustments if we need to, but I think one thing they'll see is we've talked about pure feeder patterns and how that would line up, and that's going to be a lot what you see.
And you sent that to all students regardless of whether or not they're affected, right, by the change?
Yeah, however the principals send out their mail. So each school had a different little spill to it, like Wayside kind of talked about its areas that would possibly move. Then we went into Creekview, the ones that would possibly move, Ed Wilkie and Prairie Vista. So if they want to come and they know that, specifically we would probably be talking about those areas. But the one thing I would tell them in the next 10 years, we're going to have 3,000 new elementary students. We're going to have 1,700 high school kids and about 1,300 middle school kids. So they're coming. So when Bob gives us the new demographic report, you'll see a dramatic increase because of this year, what's happened. I go to say that this probably won't be the last adjustment we make. But hopefully with this middle school, what I'm looking at is hopefully 8 to 10 years before we have to build another middle school. So it balances very well. That's all I have.
That'd be great. We'll write that down. Thank you, Clete. Our next report is on new courses for middle school and high schools for 19 and 20. Looks like we have two presenters, Stacy Summerhill and Dana Eldridge.
Good evening, President Newcomb, Board, and Dr. Chadwell. Thank you for having me here this evening to share with you courses that we would like to present for information tonight and report only, and then we would like to bring these back in November for a vote. So we have a variety of courses that we want to bring to you tonight. You have a lot of information that's been given. I'd like to just first share the overview of the process that we use in the course proposal. We started this process in early September, and we give the opportunity for campuses at the secondary levels to propose courses. They prepare reports and discuss that as a campus level. We also offer the opportunity up to our curriculum team in case there are additional courses that they would like to recommend as well. Then we come together. We take all of those recommendations and we come together and we look at those with a large committee. It's comprised of all the secondary campus principals. They bring their lead counselors and curriculum team members as well, and other directors are present in that process. So in that, you have some samples of what we do at that meeting, where we review the justification and description of the courses that they would like to see move forward. We discuss those, and we kind of come to consensus on what we would like to continue to move forward at the next step. And Dr. Parker and I review that together, and then we spent 2 different weeks that we brought that information to the leadership team, where we had discussions and shared information about the course process then. So that brings us to where we are now as report only. We have a wide variety of courses that we would like to be considered. 1 middle school course and 5 high school courses, and then in addition to that, we have 15 CTE courses as well that Dana will be elaborating on. You have a lot of information. We've tried to condense that information for you in a chart form. The first course that we would really like to highlight is the 8th grade humanities course. This will be an extension of the work that we've done in this past year in bringing forth the 6th and 7th grade humanities courses for our advanced readers and our gifted and talented students. So this will be the next step for our 8th grade students next year to carry that work forward. That will be offered in 2 class periods with the content area focusing on social studies and ELAR. We feel that that course will provide a very nice transition for our students as they prepare to go into the high school level for the advanced placement courses. The other remaining courses, we have a wide variety represented in all our content area. In social studies, we are recommending advanced world geography. Currently, we offer for our freshmen world geography and AP human geography. And the committee, this was actually brought forth by a campus, but the committee felt like we need to offer something just in the middle, something that provides a little more rigor to beyond what the current on-level world geography class offers, but provides something in case students aren't quite ready to take that AP human geography course in their freshman year. Additional courses, the next 2 courses fall in our world language department. One is American Sign Language. We are very excited to bring that forward as a recommendation. That will build upon the work based upon the community survey where we offer ASL in our World Language Academy for our 2nd through 8th grade students. The next one is also world language. This is a little bit different. This is a special topics in language and culture. It's a foreign exchange course that will be offered along with a program called GAP, German-American Partnership Program. It's an immersion program. And so we put this under the special topics realm. And then the students have the opportunity to travel abroad to Germany for a 3-week immersion experience. We have a teacher who is very, very excited about this, and I'm sure we have a superintendent who's excited about this as well. So we are happy to be able to recommend this. There are student costs involved, but it allows an opportunity for our juniors and seniors to earn credit by and also travel abroad in an immersion experience.
Summerall.
Yes, sir.
Also just want to bring to the board's attention, we actually have 15 students from Venterburg coming over in the spring. I believe this is our, oh my goodness, 6th year of the exchange, something like that. And so this is well established, and this is not a requirement for students to participate, but it does give them an opportunity. And the idea there is that it would give them something that on their transcript would show that they've gone above and beyond in that area, which it could be advantageous. You see this example in some of the other trips that students take, including the trip that kids take to New York and Washington, D.C. There's an opportunity in that case. It's not for local credit, so we're articulating it through local, so it could be on their transcript.
Do we send two teachers from reading the course, two teachers go with the students?
Yes.
There's a German instructor who would go along with the student, and another adult as well would be traveling with him.
A big change this year is that we are actually going to have the partnership with all 3 high schools and not Boswell alone. So when the 15 students come in the spring, they'll stay throughout the school district. We're changing this a bit. Heath Dollar, who's here in the audience, is actually working on this, leading at the district level. So we'll have all 3 German teachers and all 3 schools participating. The idea there is to get larger numbers and also to get more parents involved. But we will have a minimum of 1 German teacher going in the summer, but we always have a second person. In one case, I believe one year we had a third. So we always have, we look at the ratios. We want about 7 or 8 to 1. Even though they do live in people's houses, there's just a lot of things that have to take place.
Does the teacher live in the houses also?
They don't stay with students, but they usually stay with a teacher or another teacher in the school. And so they'll stay with families as well. They usually stay for 2 weeks, and then the 3rd week, they'll actually travel to another location in Germany. Likewise, for the students coming here in the spring, they'll stay with us, go to classes for 2 weeks, and on the 3rd week, they take a trip within Texas.
Well, you sound like we've done this in the past, so is this just accrediting that class?
What it is that this is a choice, and so, for example, if a student goes in the summer for that 3-week period, they can come back and do particular work. It would be after the fact. Probably a series of papers, presentations, or other work the teacher assigns that would then give a credit for that work. And so the example that I've seen is with some of the student travel programs, you can elect to do, and sometimes college credit, but it could be high school credit as well, this is high school, to be able to get some acknowledgement for your participation. But it would not be required, it would simply be an option. I would recommend it for students because it does look very strong on someone's transcript.
It's more like an independent study on
It
top
is.
of what you do, so you write
Yes.
papers and stuff.
And be required to present, and part of it is we want the students to go out and advocate for the partnership and to explain the work that we're doing. One of the things we've talked about in German and also French is that we have to provide greater context for those languages, why it would be important for people to take them, and people more likely do that if they know people who speak them and understand the culture and understand how they could use those languages after they graduate from high school.
Thank you, Dr. Chadwell. The next course that we are recommending falls into the area of science, and this one is one that keeps just coming back, and this one has moved forward, and it's astronomy. We have teachers that are eager and anxious to be able to provide an additional science course for an advanced science credit. Primarily for our juniors and seniors. This might be a beneficial course for students who might not be interested or find it appropriate in their schedule to take an AP course at that level. So astronomy provides another choice in addition to some of the other advanced courses that we have at the science level. And then finally, the last course falls into the area of math. We would like to recommend that we continue to expand on our on-ramps program that's a partnership with University of Texas in Austin. And this is an on-ramps college algebra. Our students would receive credit at both the college level from University of Texas. They would get a transcript that would be on their transcript that transfers to all public universities in the state and many of the private universities as well. But this is college algebra, and so students would receive Algebra 2 high school credit as well. So this is just something we would like to continue to expand and grow our partnership that we have with UT in this on-ramps program. So this is the next step for that. I'm going to turn it over to Dana Eldridge so she can present the CTE course recommendations.
Thank you, Stacy. President Newcomb, board members, Dr. Chadwell, leadership team, we come to you tonight with 15 courses and I'm going to try and get through them as fast as I can for you. We have quite a few replacement classes, and these are all outlined on the sheet that you have. I'm not going to go over everything, and again, for brevity. We're asking to replace our current health science clinical rotations class with a two-stack class, which is health science theory and world health research. We feel like we can have more students involved in health science technology if we make this change, and allows us more room for growth. We would like to replace human growth and development with child development. Currently, that's human growth and development is in our human services endorsement. We would like to take that class out, as that is in the education and training content area, and have a pure human services endorsement. Really excited about the next four, which are all ag-related. These four would allow us to have 2 ag endorsements. The first one would be the vet med applications class paired with the advanced animal science, offering science credit and an endorsement, which we're thrilled at. We would actually have that at the HCTC to build enrollment before moving it out to the campuses. Our dual credit option for ag would be horticulture science and advanced plant and soil. We met with TCC this past week and had an excellent meeting, and they are very on board, and we are moving forward with those classes. We would offer also greenhouse operations. We added that at the last minute because it allows our students to receive a Department of Agriculture certification. Introduction to robotics. It is big and it is moving and it's popular, and so we are looking to add a 1-credit course at the high school to follow up principles of applied engineering that would strictly focus fully on robotics. And so we would put that at the high school with the intent of growing that in the next few years into a full-fledged endorsement with 4 courses. A lot of what you're going to see now are practicum classes, and these are extensions of what we already do. So we are looking to change Aeroscience 2 to a practicum class, and the reason for that is we have currently 2 1-credit classes stacked on top of each other. We could change that to a 2-credit class and then take those 2 1-credit classes and use them for those future robotics classes. And so we're just going ahead and make those changes now, preparing for the future. After that comes our practicum classes, and these are the extensions of our courses that we already offer. These are for the sophomores that we currently have and will continue to have. It offers them that senior level opportunity to go out and seek either internships, paid experiences, or unpaid work experiences on at that senior level capstone program. So really excited about the opportunities to do that in information technology, automotive, culinary arts, and education. Is there any questions I can answer?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know our students will look forward, as well as our teachers, to the new courses and the offerings that are coming up, so.
We're excited. We
Appreciate
think
that.
that we have a wide variety of offerings at CTE and in our core curriculum courses. And the next step is that we would bring this forward in November as an action item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we hopscotch through our reports, the next one is E, the Gold Card Program Report, and Megan is not here.
I'm going to be
Prayers
there.
her.
I am going to do it.
She's sick.
Our pseudo communication.
Dan is going to help me by pushing the button.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
I'm actually going to do the presentation. Ms. Overman was ill tonight and was not able, or all day, and was not able to be here for the meeting tonight. I'll go through this fairly quickly. Just wanted to give an annual update on our Gold Card program. If you go to the next slide. So one more. The program Quick Facts, we offered free to residents age 55 and older, as we are well aware, free admittance to athletics, fine arts, and EMS ISD campus event, discounted lunchroom prices, and also the annual luncheon. There were 1,787 that were a part of this program. That's the largest membership that we've had since its inception. That's for a long time. And more than 130 members this last year, and we range from local to as far away as Oklahoma and Louisiana and Arizona. One thing we've noticed is that some of our senior living locations is that we've had people invite other friends, and so they've come along. So even though they're not from this area, they've come along to be a part of it. And I know that y'all have attended. It's a lot of fun. We provide an overview of what's happening in the school district, and we have presentations by Sean Bell and Brett Barker, which is always entertaining. And so they always kind of give each other a hard time, and they enjoy that, and it's very good. And we also did something different this year. We had a table for our EMS retired school employees, and so we're promoting involvement in that organization. And they had a number of people sign up that weren't aware of it, and people that were not actually a part of our school district but have moved in. And so that's been great. We have also had a lot of entertainment, door prizes, and just had a really good time. And so just really the essence of it, as she flips through that, is this partnership between us and our community. We talk a lot about that, and this is one of the greatest programs that exemplifies that. And we see a lot of these individuals that come to our events. You know, they get in at no cost, and they're a part. And as we shared with them that evening, we want them to adopt a school or adopt all three, come to the events, be a part of them, and it's been very, very positive. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Next is the Marine Creek Middle School staffing report. Dr. Dawkins.
President Newcomb, members of the board, Dr. Chadwick. Let me see if I can scroll up. We are quickly preparing for staffing for Marine Creek Middle School, which will open in August of 2019. In preparation of that, I wanted you to look at our initial staffing report. And we are going to be bringing some positions forward for the spring. Primarily, the two positions that we would bring forward would be the principal and the principal secretary. And they would start in January and one probably February 1st to work in the spring. But what you will see is we're asking for consideration of additional days for a variety of staff members that would have pre-work needed prior to the opening of school. So we've got some additional days built in. You can see for assistant principal, counselor, librarian. Those just are some people that we really need to help us get started actually in the summer prior to the campus opening. So these would be additional days. So the salaries for the additional days, you can see that first column, the estimated salary, $108,000, and then we're just going to bring those forward. Annualize the salary for you. You can see is $745,000 for those positions. What's not included in here, and I'll bring that at a later date. Your teachers, paraprofessionals, special ed. Just because the necessity of those positions starting early isn't as critical as these are. Your band director, athletic coordinator.
I assume some of the teachers will be transferring.
Yes, and so
Right.
that's a good point. Yes, and so
Right.
the amount that you see of 108,000 is a maximum.
Right.
And so it's quite likely there'll be less than that. So if a staff member's
Right.
coming over, it wouldn't cost any additional days because they're already under contract. And in
Right.
some cases, it may not be a full 120 days, for example,
It
for
may
the
not.
principal. It may be 115 or something like that.
Right.
So we put the maximum cost on the budget. in
And this is
report.
the same logic we've used before. I don't think we've ever seen the
Yes.
days before. I like having that there, but
Yes,
it's
we did
the
it
same
differently
logic,
this
right?
time because just from, and I
Looked
like
like
how
the
they
same
put
amount
both
number.
columns in
Right.
because you see what it's gonna be for 1920.
Right.
Yeah, we did a little bit different this year.
Yeah. We only kind of estimated the max amount of time that we would need these people, and so.
We are currently interviewing, it'll be coming up, you know the date?
First week,
First
excuse me,
round.
the first round will occur the first week of November, the 4th, I believe, and the 6th, or
For principal.
that week.
Right. For the principal, so we have to have that person on board by the end of December, early January.
We'll probably go through a minimum of 3 rounds, maybe even 4, because we have several applicants.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next report has to do with the convention that we attended, the TASB convention update. Your hours were at your place also for, just a reminder to sign off on your hours and give them to Becky, but it's an opportunity for anybody that wants to comment on any session or anything they'd like to share. So we're going to start with Liz and work our way this way.
Well, the two of them that I really enjoyed, and they were kind of, were security, and one talked about Governor Abbott and what he did the round table and the 3 things that he said, need to be done, and one was hardening of the campuses, so it would make it harder for people to get into the campus. But then I went to another one, and they had a committee of, or a table of people that represented the police department, counseling, and other areas, and they said that, sometimes that just fears our kids more when we say we're gonna harden the, the campus, and they say that, sometimes we overdo it. But basically, the thing that they both agreed on was the mental health of it. And in Linda's report on the counseling, that's where it takes place. And just what are we doing, to help the kids? And then for them to let us, keep us aware of what's going on. But it was real good. Both of those were really strong in that. And I feel real comfortable with our school district and what we're doing.
Paige? Well, I just was gonna say one of my favorite ones I attended, which was very well done, was done by Linda Parker and Dana Barnes. They represented our district very well in their breakout session regarding data, so I was anxious to see that and see them do such a good job for the district. And then the other one that kind of stood out to me is when you and I attended, I don't think everybody else did, but not the whole session, but they were talking about communications and how as a school district, we're so data-driven so many times, but that's not what our audiences always want to hear. So it talked about how steering your communications pieces more to the human side of the story. And just, it really hit home with me. Heard that one presented.
That's good. Yeah, I also enjoyed the presentation by Dr. Barnes. I was there listening to their very first one. They weren't nervous at all. But the general speakers were okay. I mean, we heard Jenna Bush on one. And, she did an okay job. Do what?
I thought you were asking who the other one was.
Who was the other one?
LaDavian Thompson.
Oh, yeah, LaDavian Thompson.
TCU grad?
The TCU grad. And he did okay too. I mean, they were some inspiration points in there that I think we could both take too. So it was my 24th one, so I was looking for anything different.
I went to Dana's and Linda's, and they actually coordinated their shoes. I think they were wearing,
We start with the
wasn't it
important
cheetah
aspects.
shoes?
Of
or-
course, yes.
Yes. But it was very well done. I'm very proud. And I think Paige and I went to the exhibit hall, and there was like this little box with this gun in it that we could place all around our schools, and we made a wide berth around that one, said not at our schools. I think some of the security measures on the exhibit floors were a little
Absurd.
Yeah.
The whole
they
theme of the event was very heavy.
Was security.
very heavy security, but otherwise I didn't think much of Jenna Bush until after I really listened to her, and she's a product of public school, and really thought a lot of her after her speech, so.
Roger?
Well, I am an overachiever for anybody who wants to know.
1 hour.
So, good mentorship.
Wait till he gets Maryland's hours.
I think the one I think that I enjoyed the most was just because it's something we had talked about. Austin ISD had a presentation where they were talking about their marketing campaign that they put forth within their district. How many, I mean, they did it like for $1 million because they have open enrollment where we don't. But, they did billboards, TV ads, radio. Their whole point was that with the drive of the charter schools, private schools, people drawing kids from within our own district, even though we can't get ones to come in, we try to keep the ones we have. And so there has got to be something to the marketing aspect to let everybody know what we are doing here so the people that do live here don't want to escape and go somewhere else. That was pretty interesting.
Chad, will you have anything you?
Well, I, again, echo, it was great to see our staff recognize and be able to do a presentation. I thought there was a video that we actually got to watch, which I wasn't thinking about going to a conference to watch a movie, but that Backpack Full of Cash, which I would recommend anybody to watch. It's very powerful, very disturbing because of looking at the monetization of students and how they're seen more as how much money they can give you to operate your business of supposedly educating them than how we see kids as children to to be supported and to be given a future. So it's a great, great movie, and I would highly recommend to watch it, and especially as we plan, and echoing what Mr. Daughtry said, is we have a job to tell people about the work that we do and not make it look like just that you can get the same service someplace else, because this is something more than that. We're a community school district, and they did a good job talking about that and how the communities were affected by the loss of students from their local schools. So, that's it.
All right, that concludes our report session. Yay. Move on now to the routine monthly reports. Any questions on those? Seeing none, we go to item 9, review the 2018 board planning calendar. Dr. Chadwell.
Okay, November 12th is our next meeting. We will have a quarterly demographic report. We'll also have district and campus improvement plan updates. I believe in the past, we've provided those on a jump drive. That's what we did last year, correct? And that's satisfactory. We'll do the same thing this year because of the size of those reports. Dr. Barnes will bring the 18-19 school calendar proposal. We'll also have a student transfer report. And you can also see that under the action items, there's an item that'll be stricken, which is we do not have an election for member to the TAD this year. It's every other year. So we'll make that adjustment that it's not in your calendar like this on those even years. And we also have to conduct the public hearing for the first rating, which should go really well. We did well on that report.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda for approval.
Move to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Paige, second by Liz to approve the consent agenda. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? There are none. Motion carries 5-0. I don't really have any announcements other than just remind you to turn in your hours signed back to Becky if you haven't already. And Dr. Chapel, any
Yes, sir.
closing announcements?
First thing is just a celebration. As of last Monday, we hit 20,001 students, and so we're growing, and it was great to see that milestone. We hit it earlier than we even anticipated, so that is great. We spent some time last week celebrating that and going out, and kind of had the opportunity to go find the student that we believe is the 20,000th student. It's kind of all happening at one time, and so a first grader at Dozier Elementary, her name's Celebrity, which I thought was a great name for, and she was a celebrity that day. She was great and was really, really excited. Her mom knew we were coming, and but she did not, and so she really had a good time, and her class did as well. So that was a lot of fun. Very proud. Also, point out a couple of events. We do have the Tim and Vicki Dennis naming event for the Boswell High School Dance and Cheer. That's on November the 5th at 5 o'clock. We also have the Employee Giving Campaign finale on November the 8th, and that's been going really well. I know Allie's here. She's worked really hard on that campaign, as well as all our campus staff that have promoted support of that program. The last thing I'll mention, or two things, holiday open house December 19th, just mark in your calendars for that. And also, Dr. Baker and I tomorrow will actually go to the FBI. They have a symposium. They had one about 6 months ago. They have a safety and security symposium. So we'll be going there tomorrow to meet with law enforcement and other school district officials to talk. And so I know he's done a tremendous amount of work there in something that's moving very, very quickly. And I do appreciate him and also all of our staff that have just been very vigilant in implementing, such as our new Crisis Go app, which is not so new anymore. We've been doing it for a while now, and it's been very, very effective. I'll end with this story. We had at one of our schools somebody that they just thought was suspicious in the area. There was no danger, but they just went on Crisis Go to comment on that. Well, that was also being monitored by Saginaw PD that said, I see that, we're going to send a patrol car by to check. I mean, no phone call, no text message, no emails, just because they're monitoring, because we give them that access to monitor our communications and be proactive as a partner. So there's a lot of great things happening there, and it makes you feel really good to see how people have come together. And a lot of the organizational side with our new safety security officers, some of whom are not new, but some are, for this year has been really, really good. And I really appreciate the campus leadership to make that happen. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Seeing that there's no further business to come before this body, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I don't have Dick here, so.
Yeah, so moved.
Motion by Donna, second by Liz. Adjourn.